Hey everyone. Um, so as you can tell, you know, by the title of the video, I'm sure you guys are gonna know what this is about. But yeah, man, it's what is it? Yeah, it's almost been a whole month since it happened, and it's just so unbelievable. Like that phrase doesn't seem right, and I don't know, just hearing it or just saying it or seeing it like in a sense, or just seeing it on paper or on a screen, just it doesn't seem right or real. But I think about why videos like these are made on social media and the like. And to be honest with you, I'm not really sure like why I myself am making this because I don't know. I'm just making it for whatever reason. But I guess I do this to try to help. I don't know, whoever watches this heal in some way, and I don't know. At the same time, maybe I just make this video just for myself. But I don't know what I'm not sure what perspective I'm speaking from here. I don't know if it's as a Spurs fan. Anyone that knows me knows, San Antonio Spurs is that's it's been my team. I don't know if I'm speaking from the perspective of a Spurs fan. I don't know if I'm speaking from the perspective of a basketball fan in general, or I don't know if I'm just speaking from the perspective of someone who's just really sad that someone like Kobe died. You know. Um, my head was spinning, and like I'm still in disbelief, shock, and the whole thing is just unfathomable to me. My literally like that phrase, my head is spinning. Like I felt that. And like I said, it's been a whole month since the whole thing has happened, and of course I thought about it a lot the first week, 2 weeks. Maybe I haven't thought about it as much since then, but I'll remember it, and especially today, with the memorial service, I remembered the whole thing over again. Um, Kobe, by nature, was a rebel. I think he was someone that just had a lot of character and spunk and pep and moxie to him, and yeah, that's exactly who he was. He was someone who did things with pep and deliberation and calculation. But even though he did things, with as I said, calculation, with logical sort of logical thinking behind it. At least when he was 24, Kobe. I'm not just talking about on the basketball court. I'm just saying in general. Even though he did things with with logistics in play, he did things with feelings and emotion and intensity as well. And that said intensity could just show itself as pure raw emotion, like on the basketball court, or it would be something a little more quieter and subdued, where you can just he would say something like in a very stern or strict voice, or he would say something in a particular tone and you could just tell what he was feeling. um, and I think that's my at least I said 24 Kobe, but I say young Kobe in general, because when did he take 24? That was '06, right? '06, '07, right? '06. So how old would he have been? He would have been like 26 maybe. How old I am, if I'm not mistaken. How old? I don't even remember the age. But point is, yeah, man, he was a person with a lot of fire inside him. The day that it happened, uh, I woke up at 2:30 or 3. Like it was a Sunday, January 26th. I woke up at 2:30 or 3 because my company party had my gala. It was the night before, and drinking and all that. So, but I woke up at 2:30 or 3, and then my brother Anant, he looked at me. He was like, "Yo, Manu," and I was like, "Yo, what's up?" And then he said, "Kobe died." I was like, and then quickly, like the stupor that I was in, the mindset that I was in, I snapped out of it, and I looked at him. I was like, like I was literally like I have a sleeping bag. I was on my sleeping bag, and I looked up at him, and I was like, "What? What?" And I was, like I said, the whole thing was just so stunning and shocking and just completely out of left field. It blindsided me, and my head was spinning. And that whole day, I just laid in my bed thinking about Kobe till like 10 at night or so, and watching videos and whatever. And yeah, dude, I did cry. I did shed tears. And you know, people always say like, why, you didn't know the person, they're just a celebrity and all this. But dude, honestly, like, I think dude, the death of any human being on this planet is, I feel like it's a sad thing. It can be a sad thing. It can be a sad thing, and I'll talk about that a little later. But you don't have to know someone to like grieve their death, man. Don't just that's just like a such a closeted mindset, way of thinking. And yeah, dude, I cried a little bit, man. It reminded me of when Nip died last year, because Nip was someone like his music had like touched my soul, like especially like what I had gone through in college and everything, and the way that I felt like that we had the same spirit and everything. I felt that same thing with Kobe. Um, but yeah, man, people say shedding tears for people you don't know is dumb, and then all that negative stuff that happened is like his rape allegation in '03 in Denver, and at this one of my not one of my friends, just a girl that I knew who went to high school. I saw her like her post on Facebook, and it's just like, dude, like, and I was just thinking to myself, like, how can you bring up the rape allegation when there are like literally people grieving for the joy that he brought in their lives? Like, you're just gonna like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't. I'm not gonna say that it's wrong to like acknowledge that, but you can't just say like he deserved to die with his daughter and like seven other people like in a helicopter crash because of a rape allegation, man. Like, and it's just crazy like how people are so, as soon as you do like one, and this is not even just a bad thing. Like this, rape is a horrible thing, but just to forget like all the positive stuff that he has done, in the world, whether it's helping the homeless in LA, whether it's giving back to less fortunate families than he has, making shoes or like whatever it is, just inspiring like a bunch of people, and like you want to denigrate the man based off of something which he did make a mistake of. I think he was still with Vanessa at the time, whatever. But I don't really want to talk about that. But the point is like, I saw that and it just made me think, man. Like, dude, like people are so quick to judge like when people die, like when they're so quick to bring up like the bad stuff, man. Like there's also no one's a saint and no one's a perfect person. Everyone does bad things in their life, but it's just like, maybe they do more bad than they do good, but you got to learn how to acknowledge both. And you know, anyway, that I didn't really want to talk about that, but I've always thought that fame is unnecessary and something that tends to make its carrier arrogant, or it helps to massage the ego of people. Fame, and I didn't think Kobe was an exception to this. Um, and he's admitted it. He admitted it in his own interviews and everything. Like he was kind of arrogant. He was, and I'll talk about this too, like later in the video. But um, and it might seem that I might say a lot of negative things about Kobe in this video, but that's not like the. Well, first of all, that's not the intention, and two, like you'll see my, not only it will go towards something positive at the end. Um, but yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, I didn't think Kobe was an exception to this. And but with Kobe, I think there was also an opposite side that is also true. Um, when it comes to fame, fame can be good when you want to inspire. Um, and of course, the loss of his daughter Gianna and the other seven on the helicopters is equally hurtful. But I think in this case, fame isn't a denigration of their passing. It's more so an uplifting of not only Kobe's quest, but all of their quests to inspire. Whenever you saw like Gianna like do like imitate Kobe like in overtime videos, or John Altobelli, he was Aaron Judge's, who played on the Yankees. I think he still plays on the Yankees. He was like his college coach. A whole bunch of different people, like they all had families and like people too, and it's just kind of it's just sad that they went out the way that they did. Like I said before, I might say some things in here that sound bad, but like I said, I don't mean it in that way. And I think for me, it's just when it's my own truth, and like I said, it's going to lead towards something positive. And it's a very strange thing, but it's strange. But speaking about negative things about Kobe, somehow makes me feel closer to him on a spiritual and like soul-like level, like my mentor, my bigger brother. And I think that's part of like the reason why the death has, even though I've never had a conversation with him, like the death had hit it still is hitting me like pretty bad. And it's the same thing with Nip last year. um, much like my own emotions, which are just a bunch of tangled different feelings. I don't even know where to begin with Kobe, but I guess if I were to talk about like some of those negative, darker things first, Kobe to me was someone that was, like I said before, like he had fire in him, but he was also someone that was embroiled in ruthlessness and a lot of things I didn't like. Discipline, routine, trying to find sound technical explanations for machinations, in basketball, explaining things to teammates or interviewees in specific ways. And, being a Spurs fan, obviously him being a Laker, these things compounded on top of one another, and, I just didn't like him, at least as, coming from a fan. These things to me just didn't feel right because, in my opinion, basketball and sport in general, it's something that's played with heart. Yeah, you have like logistics, X's and O's, and all that, but I also personally I love the intrinsic workings of the game. Like where you make a move or whatnot. But I always felt like Kobe he tried to boil it down to a science, which I didn't like, and I never liked the way that this was said by him, like in interviews or whatever. I think one example that I can remember was it was 2010. Yeah, it was 2010. It was the Sun series, and I remember like I think I'd watched. I think they swept the Suns that in that series, if I'm not mistaken, right? I could be wrong about that, but they ended up beating them and then beating Boston in the finals, right? But I remember like the post game for one of those Suns games. They were in the locker room, and then you saw like Kobe. He was speaking with Pau, and then he was saying like the specific like how he was trying so hard to accentuate like or to emphasize how Pau set a pick for him, and I just didn't think like that was like that didn't seem real to me. That didn't seem genuine. It didn't. It almost seemed like he was making a whole lot of nothing, a whole lot of something out of nothing. Um, and to be honest, I still kind of feel that way because it's just like, hey man, just set like a harder pick and just know the angle. That's it. Um, but that's an example of what I was talking about. But like I was saying earlier, coupled all this with me being a Spurs fan, and you can imagine that he was nowhere near my favorite players in the league. I liked D Wade more than him. I wanted Boston to. I think that first '08 finals, I was rooting for Boston because I wanted KG to win a ring. And yeah, man, I hated 2008 to 2010 for the NBA because those finals just had insufferable teams. I didn't like the Lakers or the Celtics during those years. And only now do I kind of like realize that. Only recently have I kind of like realized that I didn't like Paul Pierce, I didn't like Ray Allen, I didn't like Kobe, I didn't like Andrew Bynum, I didn't like Derek Fisher. You know, Kobe, well, he wasn't my most hated player, but he wasn't on my most liked players either. And just think about it, me being a Spurs fan. Obviously, Manu's injuries in 2008, the '09 and 2010 to his ankles and nose really screwed us because Tim was on our Tim was the best player, but Manu was the player that we would give the ball to, like in the last 2 or 3 minutes of a game, trust him to either make a shot, an important decision, or something to set up the offense, whatever. Like he was that guy. And then in 2008, like he had the whole ankle injury, which allowed for Sasha Vujacic to guard him, better than he should have. And it was because of Manu that we were able to win one game in '08, and it was game 3. I think he started that game. '09, like he was ruled out for the playoffs. We lost to Dallas. And then 2010, he had the nose injury. And then I think like he had another ankle injury. And then Phoenix and Goran Dragic just went supernova in game 3, and Phoenix beat us in 2010. And our depth was just not. It just wasn't up to. It didn't amount to anything. Bruce was aging. We traded him for Richard Jefferson. Michael Finley was aging, Kurt Thomas was aging, etc. We just couldn't deal with that front court of the Lakers front court of Powell, Bynum, and Odom. And yeah, man, we just got beat by better teams. However, while I say I hated these things, I loved it too. I loved it, and I don't know why. Like for some reason, when I saw Kobe or whoever, not just Kobe, but whoever win the finals, there was a sense of happiness for me. I felt happy for the team that was winning, and I still do to this day. Every team. It was I never understood why. Still kind of don't understand it, but I was happy for Kobe when he got 5 rings. It was more than Tim at the time. Tim he had 4, and then Kobe tied him in '09, and then finally got 5 in 2010. But yeah, for some reason I still rooted for him in that time. But really it was like the militaristic, almost routine way that Kobe did things. And I don't consider myself if there's one flaw about me, Saiyan Z3 Manu, is that I'm not a very disciplined guy. I can be in specific moments, but discipline for me, routine for me, it's hard. It's not something that I do. And of course, it's very important. And I think but like I said, it's very important. And so I think realizing or learning the importance of that later in life drew me towards Kobe and really made me connect with him, like on that soul like level. And yeah, man, somewhere along the way as I got older, I just stopped hating. I didn't hate Kobe after a while. And this wasn't about appreciating greatness. Like for me, like it's not about hating. It's not about appreciating greatness or Kobe being a great player. Of course, he was all those things. But for me, it was more so loving and appreciating a great rival. I think that's what it was for me. It was, and not just a great rival, just just Kobe as a person. Forget the basketball player. Kobe as the person. Of course, there was respect for me. Of course there was respect. Of course there was respect between Spurs and Lakers. Of course there was respect, and the fandom, whatever. But for me, it went beyond that. It was more than respect. It was about admiration and love. And the thing that always caught my eye as I grew up were the interactions between players. One of the things that I always loved, I still love to this day, is just seeing, when you go when the NBA All Star game and you see like all the different players from different teams interact. You want to see like who, who what one player thinks of another, how people certain players interact, who's cool with one another, or like who's talking with who, like who's just hanging around, like whoever it is, right? And for me as a Spurs fan, I wanted to see Manu and Tim and Tony interact with other players, especially because we had the reputation of being like that under the radar low key team. We don't really do interviews or media or spotlight or anything like that. So I wanted to see like who they would interact with, and so it made me happy to know that CP3 looked at Tim and Tony as his bigger brothers. Tim at CP3 Chris Paul, the Wake Forest thing, and Tony was like a mentor to him. It made me happy to know that James Harden said that Manu and Kobe were his favorite players. It made me happy years later to see LaMarcus and Steph just sit with Tim and then just have talks on the sidelines at All-Star games. That and post-game interviews and the like are really where I started to dismiss the whole. It's just a begrudging respect between rivals. That whole we respect them, whatever. And I started to dismiss that whole thing and just realized, like I genuinely like vibe and like fucking like fuck with and like love this dude, as a like as my friend. And it was more like it's a brotherhood forged not only in competition but off the court as well. And so I always loved that shit. To see my favorite players and idols just dap each other up, especially when we, like I said, especially when we were known for being a quiet organization, not avoid the spotlights and such, it just made me happy as a Spurs fan. And with Kobe, it was the same. Every time Kobe interacted with any one of those four, it was something that went beyond respect. And to me, you could just tell. To me, it's one of those things you can just tell by facial expressions and body language or whatever. It was genuine. There was respect. Don't get me wrong, but it was genuine, real love. Like they were all brothers, and they were just like like that was a family. But before I delve into this, I want to delve into the rivalry between the Spurs and the Lakers. Tim and Kobe were the two best players of their generation, right? So the debate of who was better was always something I partook in. And like the general media, everyone like if someone is more likely to know Kobe Bryant than Tim Duncan, right? Because Kobe was a little more like flashy and like box office and athletic, like whatever it was, like he could fly and all this stuff, right? Kobe was the antithesis of everything we stood for. And it wasn't just Kobe. It was LA as a whole. It was LA, Lakers, Kobe, all that whole thing. It was just the antithesis of everything that we stood for. While LA was the city of famous people and celebrities in Hollywood and the paparazzi and the media, San Antonio was a small city. It was just a small city, just mainly known for its Latino heritage. While Kobe was popular and electric, Tim was underappreciated and quiet. While the Lakers loved the paparazzi and putting on a show, the Spurs just liked sticking to themselves and doing their job. It was as opposite as you can get, right down to Pop and Phil. Right down to Pop and Phil. But through those differences, there were also similarities that made us brothers. I can talk about, like I said, the Latino heritage between San Antonio and LA, the love for tacos between San Antonio and LA, how they took care of their Latino citizens. Both teams understood how to sacrifice, the Lakers and the Spurs. They understood who the best player was. They understood that players had roles to play on the team, and how to take care of each other as teammates and as family. And that's what I started to realize, like the older I got. And with Tim and Kobe, it was no different. You know, they had, like I said, like there was differences, but those similarities I felt like really made them brothers. It was no different. You know, they both love psychology. Tim's major at Wake Forest was psychology, and and there's like a famous you can look it up on Google. Tim Duncan psychology paper. Kobe loved to understand like the mentality of players, when before he played them. They both loved paintballing. Steven Jackson has a great paintballing story with Tim Duncan, and Kobe loved it too. Tim's brother is a director and cinematographer, and while Kobe himself obviously loved storytelling and making stories, and he eventually ended up making an Oscar. The types of characters they also liked were similar. Tim loves the Punisher, and Kobe loves Arya. They kind of like that dark, somewhat anti-heroic characters. They both loved Matt Damon's character in fucking Good Will Hunting. They both grew up Lakers fans and having Magic as their favorite player, and obviously in Kobe's obviously with the in Kobe's in what's the word? What's the phrase I'm looking for uh, in Kobe's place, or for Kobe. Basically Kobe, besides Magic, he also liked MJ as his favorite player. And for me, just this one dude living in New York and Maryland at the time, the things they liked in general made me connect with them. With Manu, it was the same. The fact that they both lived in Italy, grew up there, played basketball there. They could both speak Spanish and Italian. They understood Latino culture, how competitive the both of them were, how cerebral they were with the game, all of that. And when Kobe came and sat with Manu at the FIBA championship with Argentina, what was it, this past summer? That really made me happy. And with Tony, it was the same thing. Whether it was just hanging out with him at the All Star game and being his friend, taking Instagram pics with each other's family after the game, it was the same. And like with Manu, when France was at the FIBA, they were at the FIBA tournament this summer. It was the same thing. Kobe went and talked and sat with him, and I can almost guarantee you that Tim, Tony, and Manu thought of him as like their brother in some respect. They thought of him as their brother. They had a kinship with them, and I kind of feel the same way. But for me, I also think about Pop a lot. I thought about Pop a lot the day that it happened. If you want my opinion, I think Pop thought of Kobe as his son in some ways, and Pop has always said that Pop has said before that he's always thought about like different players, or not that Pop has said it. He said it about a couple players, but he's literally Pop. Like, he can be a second father. So many different people like on his team, whether it's Tim, Tony, Manu, Steven Jackson, DeJounte Murray, like whoever it is. And I think with Kobe, it was more or less the same. He thought of him as a second son in some respects, for all the same reasons that he thought of Tim as and Manu and Tony as his son. They were he saw the similarities in them. He saw in Kobe, and you could just tell by like all the ways like the talks that they would have like at All Star games. I remember like it was Kobe. I think 2013, like when he was 2013, 2014, he had the ACL injury, and I remember going on. It was not Sports Illustrated. It was NBA.com. As we're looking at the post game, and Pop had like a 2025, like the Jared Greenberg and the people like at the desk, they were like covering the whole thing, not specifically what Pop and Kobe were talking about, just like the Lakers Spurs game in general. And you could see Kobe in crutches walking through the hallway of Staples Center, whatever, and he's with Gianna, and then Pop comes up to him. I think there's actually a picture on Google, and he was on crutches, and then they just started, they just dapped it up and just spoke with each other for a little. And it's those moments, the culmination of all those moments, that I really think that helped to really make us think of him like as our friend, obviously as a rival, as our brother, and as like part of a family. And and I think for me that's what makes this all the more sadder. You know, uh, Tim, Manu, and Tony thought of Kobe as their friend, their brother. Pop thought of him as the same as his son, and those feelings transferred to me as just a fan. Of course, I had my own personal feelings too, but the culmination of all those things made this all the more sadder for me, and that's why I grieved the way that I did. the battles and the chances to just meet with him through other players made me connect with him on that soul-like level. Kobe was also someone that had to let people know who he was. He had to let you know who he was. If you watch interviews of his childhood in Italy, he's always mentioned that he drew on that isolation of just being like this, like having no friends in Italy. He drew on that isolation to make him ruthless and a killer, like on the basketball court. His relationships with people really made him tough as a man and tough to deal with also. Not many people remember this, but he actually had a battle with his parents over his memorabilia, like over all the he had obviously like cemented himself as a GOAT, like one of the best players ever, and so he had actually had a battle with his parents over his memorabilia, and them trying to keep it for money purposes. So like that. I mean, that's just one example of it, but yeah, he was a tough. He himself has admitted that he was kind of like tough to deal with. He has admitted to being arrogant, and he had to let people know that he was the alpha, making people know he was the alpha. He came up with his own nicknames. And everyone knows that you don't come up with your own nicknames. You have to let other people give it to you. But he came up with his own nickname. He came up with Black Mamba. He came up with Vino. And he was in LA, and he used that spotlight to his advantage. And even his post-retirement was a means to further his legacy. And yeah, man, and like I said, Kobe was someone that he really wanted people to know, like, yeah, dude, I'm like the fucking man, man. I'm the fucking man, dude. Like, know who I am. You better talk. You better fucking talk about me when you talk about like the greatest fucking players like to ever play the game. You better do it. And that goes back to my whole talk. What I was saying about like Kobe admitting to being he was arrogant and how he wanted to use legacy, how he wanted to use fame, and all these things. Yes, it is positive to spread knowledge among the next generation. Which is something that he was doing. You could tell that Kobe, he if you are a true Kobe fan, if Kobe is your favorite player, right? If you've watched his interviews, you've watched all these things, Kobe did things for the sake of legacy and making people know who he was. And part of that was imparting knowledge to the next generation. That included LeBron, KD, Kawhi, Beard, Russ, PG, DeMar, IT, Kyrie, D-Book, like whoever it was, all these different players. That he was spreading it just to let them know, like, yeah, look at my impact on the game. But with that being said, it was also positive because he wanted to give back to basketball. And like I said, that comes across as selfish, like with the whole like letting people know who you were. And I do believe part of it was. And I think anyone that knows Kobe also knows that because of his desire to be the best there ever was. But I also believe there was a genuine desire to give back to the game that he loved and to see people he cared about succeed as much as they can. And so, like, this is what I was saying. I might say like things about like Kobe being arrogant and all this, but it's going to lead to something positive, and I think that's what this is. He loved people, cared about people, gave back, shared, and like I said, I do believe part of it was selfish, but I do believe part of it was genuinely being a good person. And yeah, man. So strangely, through all the selfishness and self-aggrandizing that I've talked about with Kobe, there was also genuine love. And I think for me, the way that I hated him as a Spurs fan, if there's one bar that was hate, there was one bar that was love at the same goddamn time. And yeah, man, I'm gonna miss Kobe. I'll probably think about him just offhand for the rest of my life, and it's gonna feel like it still feels like a part of my soul is just being yanked out of me, or that I'm not whole for all the reasons that I stated. The relationships he had with my favorite team and players, and just his own persona in general. Just the things that he liked, the things that he hated, the way that I would see him like react to things, like that really made me feel like I personally had some sort of kinship with him, and for all the things. So yeah, I'm gonna miss him, man. And like I said, today was his memorial service, and usually these things help people to move on, I feel, because of the sense of finality. And for the most part, I think that's kind of like this is really like only one of two like celebrity deaths. I mean, that I've really like that have hit me this hard. This and Nip, right? But this memorial service, it didn't for me though. This memorial service, it didn't help me move on. I got sad again and thought about him the whole day, even a whole month after, like I said. But with that being said, I've always felt that, events like these, funerals or whatever, they can also be places of happiness because you can also celebrate how well people have lived, you know. And I think for some reason, I just ended up thinking, if for some reason I just ended up thinking of One Piece and Roger for some reason. Um, and I think it was on display here. What I'm talking about with the whole happiness thing. I've talked about the Spurs a lot here, and it's just kind of like impossible to talk about Kobe's basketball career without the Spurs being in it, and vice versa. Um, and yeah, man, like I said, like what I was saying earlier with the interactions between different players, I was happy to see Pop, Tim, Manu, Tony, RC Buford, who was our ex GM, Demar, Rudy, and Will Sevening, who was our athletic trainer. They showed up to the funeral, and they had special seats like close, uh, to the stage where everyone was speaking. It was the definition of fam slash crew slash gang rolling deep, and it was because of something to do with Kobe that happened. I was also happy to see them dap up Magic. I was also happy to see Tim talk with Chris Bosh and have him sit behind him at the at the service. I was happy to see Charles Oakley sitting behind them and talking with them. It was just really cool for me and happy and heartwarming and happy for me to see the definition of an NBA family like come together. And like I said, I go back to Nip's memorial in 2019, and I remember that really funny story that Snoop told when he was giving his speech, when he had people laughing. And lo and behold, the same thing happened here with Shaq and MJ. With the, I'll just kind of like paraphrase it here if you guys haven't watched it, but you guys should go like find it on your own. Shaq has this thing where he was like, he had a conversation with Kobe, and he was like, you know, Kobe, he's like he's scoring or he's not passing the ball enough or whatever, and Shaq's like, all right, I'm gonna go talk to him. Kobe, there's no I in team, and then Kobe responds, yes, but there is an ME in that motherfucker. And that goes back to the whole like arrogant selfishness thing, like self-image thing that I was talking about earlier, but that was a whole that made people laugh, man. MJ, when he that really hit me too, when he said Kobe is his little brother. And like I said, you could see the similarities between Michael and Kobe. I've always said Kobe in some ways was more talented than Mike, in the sense that Kobe had more range. He actually said this in an interview too. Kobe took more threes and made more threes, if I'm not mistaken. He surpassed Mike in scoring, but Michael's just like, he was the package. It's kind of it's hard. It's really hard to like not even just compare the two, but it's really hard to what's the word, um, like compare in the sense of greatness, because I feel like there's just so many different things that go into greatness. Um, but yeah, man, you could just when Mike said that's my little bro and all this stuff, and that really hit me, man. And but like I was saying, he also brought the last when he said like the whole crying meme stuff. That was really funny too, and it was really funny to see like Steph's reaction. Like the camera went to Steph, and you could just see his face, like he was cheesing hard. That made me really happy too. And yeah, man, like it was sad, but I think about like Bill Russell wearing Kobe's jersey and all this stuff, and there was a lot of sadness, but there was a lot of happiness too. And while this didn't make me move on is that how you say it? Proverbially, yeah. While this didn't technically make me move on, I think it was very heartwarming to see people come together and celebrate his life. I don't think I'll ever be ready to move on. I think when you move on from someone's death, it's just something that just happens, and it's just something that time heals like on its own. But whenever that happens, in the meantime, I'm just going to continue to enjoy watching his highlights. I'm going to continue to enjoy watching his interviews. I'm just going to continue to enjoy seeing people pay tribute to him, and I'm just going to enjoy like what people do for him, not only in the league but just across the world. And like I said, man, like I've talked about our differences too, but I've also talked about our similarities. And like I said, discipline is not my thing, routine and all that. Me being a lazy guy, it's not my thing. But with that being said, I one day hope to attack something with as much discipline, dedication, heart, and enthusiasm as much as Kobe Bryant did basketball. Um, yeah, man. RIP Kobe, Gianna, and the other 7 in the crash, and love you. And with that, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it.